first step I'm going to do is I'm going to use a distributive property here. So I'm going to multiply each of these terms here in the parentheses by -5. So I'm going to first multiply the v by -5 and I get -5v. Keep in mind that this is really just one v. So -5 times 1 is -5. Next, I'm going to multiply -5 times +1, which is -5 again, and then I bring down my equal sign. And don't forget, if you have a variable without a coefficient, meaning there's no number in front of it, we can recognize that there's only one v there, so it's a 1, we just don't normally write it. But in this case, I have 1v minus 9 plus, and now I have to distribute this +2. So always be aware of the sign to the left of the number you're distributing. In this case, it's a positive, and I'm going to multiply that with a +5v. So +2 times +5 is +10v in this case. And now I'm going to multiply the +2 with the +7, and we're going to get +14. So I put +14. So just be very careful with the signs when you're distributing them. The main one you're going to have an issue with is when you're multiplying by a negative number. So distributing a positive is not bad, but it's when you multiply with a negative. So be careful with those. Next step I'm going to do is look for like terms on the same side. So on the left, I can see I have 5v and 5, so those are not like terms. Like terms should have the identical variables, or they can be constants, meaning numbers without variables. You can put those together. On the right side, we have several like terms. For one, I could combine this v here with the 10v, and notice it's a +10v because I have the plus in front of it. And then the other pair of like terms would be this -9 and this +14. So those numbers without variables are called constants. Constants are like terms. So I'm going to simplify it in the next step. So I'm going to bring down a -5v minus 5 because you cannot combine those. I'm going to combine this 1v here with the +10 and I get 11v. And now I'm going to combine -9 plus 14 and I get +5. Now I can see I have like terms on different sides of the equation, which means I'm going to start using either the addition property or subtraction property of equality in order to combine them. In this case, I'm going to look at the smaller value and I'm going to start with the variables. I have the -5v and the 11v here. The smaller one is -5, so I'm going to make a zero pair with that, meaning use the opposite value. So opposite of a -5 is a +5, which means I'm going to use addition property and add 5v to both sides. And the reason why I like to target the smaller one is because when I use the addition property or subtraction property, it'll end up with a positive value in the end. I'm going to bring down my equal sign and simplify. -5v plus 5v is a zero pair. That's gone. It cancels out. And again, be very conscious of this right here. This is a -5 you got to bring down. Not just a 5, a -5. So that's a huge mistake, or 99% of your mistakes are going to come from negatives. So be careful with those signs. Then I add up 11v and 5v and I get 16v. Bring down my +5. And don't forget, we're trying to solve for v. So I know that I have v isolated on one side of the equation, which means I'm going to create a zero pair with the remaining constant on that side, which is the +5. And to make a zero pair, opposite of +5 would be -5, which means I'm using a subtraction property. And I'm going to take away 5 from both sides of the equation. Bring down my equal sign. -5 minus 5 gives me -10. This is a zero pair here, so that's gone. And we're left with 16v. And in the last step, I have to remind myself I'm trying to get 1v. I want to figure out what's the value of 1v. Which means in order to make 16v into a 1, I got to divide by 16. And if I do that on one side, I'm going to do the same thing on the other side. So that means we're using division property of equality. Bring down my equal sign. 16v divided by 16 is equal to 1v. And then I can see here, -10/16. I can't divide it because I'm going to end up with a decimal. I'm going to do the work on the side just to keep it organized. And I just got to ask myself, what's the biggest number that could divide into 10 and 16? And in this case, the biggest number will be 2. And when I do -10 divided by 2, I can see that's going to give me -5. And in the denominator, the bottom, 16 divided by 2, I get +8. And that would be my final answer.